Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today we're talking about well, you read the title. That's why you're here. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's move on with this. So clearly, I get a lot of comments of people always saying that I'm always bashing PlayStation and that I don't like PlayStation and stuff like that, and that I don't hate PlayStation. I don't. I mean, as you can see, I clearly have one. I literally paid $75 just so I could play Horizon Forbidden West, my most anticipated PlayStation game. Yeah, I do. I talk bad about checkerboard rendering all the time. I do. I don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. I wish that Sony would focus more on a native resolution. So, I got called out today, by one of he's been in the community for a while now, and he called me out about my review for Dying Light 2, and highly recommending that game, even though it runs at 1080p at 60 frames a second. That was my first real test with that. Honestly, I found out I'd already had it pre-ordered, I'd already had it pre-bought. I'd found out, just before it was going to launch, that it was going to run at 1080p at 60 frames a second. I was frustrated. I made plenty of content on it. But I have a gaming YouTube channel. So it's kind of my responsibility, or kind of my job, to report things and to play these experiences and give you my honest feedback about how I see that. And so yeah, it was a struggle. It honestly took like 10 minutes for me to finally get used to, the image quality on my 4K TV. I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit tough. And that transitioned, over to the Xbox Series S, because that game does run at 1080p at 30 frames a second. But for some reason, the 30 frames a second on that feels smoother than the resolution mode 30 frames a second on the 4K TV. But I also have invested in a monitor for this channel because I am exclusively reviewing content on the Xbox Series S as well. So I thought, well, this thing's supposed to run, 1440p, 1080p to 1440p. So I figured, why not get a 1440p monitor so that I can give an accurate review resolution-wise for that. And I'll tell you, since I've had this monitor, I've had the PlayStation 5 hooked up to it. I've had the Xbox Series X hooked up to it. And I'm telling you, overall, for the most part, all three of them offer a better experience on the 1440p monitor. More bang for your buck. You get a better looking image regardless of what the resolution is, as long as it's not 540p. It looks amazing. It looks great. It looks pin sharp. It looks crystal clean. It looks great. It's everything you want your image to look like on a 4K TV. Now, when we get into 4K and things like checkerboard rendering, checkerboard, whatever, and other upscaling techniques, I'll tell you, out of all the PlayStation upscaling techniques, I think that Insomniac's temporal injection is probably the better one. That one looks a lot better. Checkerboard rendering is terrible, especially if it's at a lower resolution. If the resolution's like 1080p and they're upscaling it to like 1440p or whatever with checkerboard rendering, it looks atrocious on a 4K TV. Like it looks terrible, especially from where I'm sitting. So it looks terrible. So why am I talking about that? Well, with Dying Light 2, that game renders at a native 1080p. So is what happens with 1080p with all the vegetation that you have in a game like Dying Light 2. 1080p already makes that look fuzzy. Like it already does. Now, if you add checkerboard rendering on top of that already fuzziness, the blurriness in there, in my eyes, it just looks way worse. Way worse. Way freaking worse than it already does just by going to 1080p blurriness. The 1080p on Dying Light 2, because of the higher, the higher fidelity visuals, because it has higher fidelity visuals. It has more going on in the scene. It has more atmosphere. It has more, particle effects. It has all of them things that that tend to look a little bit sharper, a little bit cleaner, and they add more to the image stability so it doesn't look as bad. But if you're talking about them older, bland 1080p games from like the early generation of Xbox One and stuff, no, those look atrocious. But these newer games, because they have more going on, they tend to look a little bit better in 1080p. So I'm not 100% against 1080p anymore. Mainly because I'll be playing that mainly on my 1440p monitor, but it does not look as atrocious as it normally does on my 4K TV. And that's a thing, you know, okay? Because let's face it, in games, yeah, visuals are a big part of the presentation, and that's why a lot of people cling to the PlayStation like, oh my gosh, these are the best looking video games I've ever seen in my life. And we've all seen it. The PlayStation fanboys are a bit ridiculous with that stuff. They do. They get a bit ridiculous. And then it makes me... I like PlayStation, okay? I like PlayStation. I think it's a fine console. The PlayStation 5 is perfectly fine. I've noted many times that it is one hell of a YouTube starter kit. Like, it really is. You can edit, create, and build videos right on your PlayStation 5 and put them right onto YouTube. It is amazing. If you are wanting to start a YouTube channel and that you've only got like $500 to spend, get your PlayStation 5, get a freaking solid game, and you know, get your little camera and stuff, and you can put all of this stuff right on your PlayStation 5. It's got a capture card, everything. You can ship videos straight to YouTube right from your PlayStation 5. So yeah, if you want to start a channel and you got a PlayStation 5, that's a quick way out there to getting out gameplay, stuff like that. You can live stream straight to YouTube as well. That makes it even amazing. There's a point in my 10 months, actually today is 10 months on YouTube, guys. Celebrate that. There was a point in my YouTube career where I was literally to the point where I was buying 2 copies of each game to to live stream those on the PlayStation 5, and I'd be playing my main game on the Xbox. Well, I don't need to do that no more because I figured out how to use OBS. You know, you learn something new every day as a content creator. As you start to upgrade your equipment and get better stuff, you learn to use different stuff better. So now I can actually use my equipment to use my capture card to stream directly from my Xbox, my PlayStation, everything, right onto YouTube. And I don't have to go through the YouTube thing on the PlayStation no more. So it's kind of irrelevant to me, but I'd already invested in a capture card. I just didn't have a PC capable enough of using that tech to be able to stream, and now I have that. I have that. I've upgraded my system. I've upgraded my stuff. So things are getting better in that regards. But when it comes to me hating PlayStation, like, that is not the case. This channel has always since its inception been a neutral channel. Always been a neutral channel. Always will be a neutral channel. It is Xbox centric. I have made that decision a while back to go Xbox centric. I like the community. I like what Xbox is doing with gaming in general and being able to bring a better value to everybody than the typical console traditional cycle. Xbox is shaking things up, and that's cool. That's great for competition. It's great for the industry. It's great for getting people to play games. Because, I mean, think about it. A game like Bloodborne, like, PlayStation guys are like, oh yeah, that's great. And it is. I've completed Bloodborne. I think it's an amazing game. Only 2 million people bought that game. Only 2 million people. So there's a lot of people out there that have never even played that. Imagine Bloodborne being on a Game Pass subscription, you know, coming out day one. Boom, a lot of people are more likely to try that. A lot of people will get turned off because there is it's like hitting a brick wall until you learn how to play it. And that was me at first with it. To be completely honest with you, I bought it the day it came out, and I took it back to GameStop like a couple bosses later, and I was like, nope, this ain't for me, because I've been conditioned for the last 3 console generations with these safe games, that are easy to complete, and like, you don't really need to put much thought into them. So when you run against a wall like that, it's like boom, instant shock, and you're like, oh man, no. And then you take it back. Well, I bought it a year again. I bought it a year later, and I tried it again, and I completed the game. Like, I beat it, and I was like, "All right, man, that's great." And then I got Dark Souls, and I got Sekiro, and I've bought in every game since then. and I've played them all. And some of them I haven't beat yet, but I keep going back to them and I keep trying. I keep butting my head against the wall until I figure it out and figure out how to get past it, and that's fine with me because I keep playing it and I enjoy that, and I have access to that. And that's something that Xbox does better with backward compatibility and enhancements and stuff. And Xbox has just really hit the ground running with making the experience as seamless as they possibly can. So yeah, I do. I spend a lot of time on my Xbox. I haven't spent a lot of time on my PlayStation 5. I'll be the first to admit that. I've played everything that's come out. Some of it was hit and miss. Some of it I just didn't care enough to keep playing, like Godfall, Destruction All Stars. There's been some whoppers in there. And then some that are, kind of good. I mean, I spent like 12 or 13 hours running around in Returnal. Really tried to give that game a really good chance and stuff. And, it's just gotten buried in my backlog of stuff I need to go back and play. And I'll chalk that up to like Sekiro. I'm not done with Sekiro, so I mean, eventually I'll go back and I'll play through it and stuff. So it will come back around. There just hasn't been enough on the PlayStation 5 to really like sink me into that ecosystem and like really give me like I want to play. But I just picked up Sifu the other day. I plan on playing that this weekend, live streaming some more of that. I plan on playing Horizon Forbidden West next Friday. I'm taking Friday off to play that game, for heaven's sakes. I'm a gamer. That's what I like to do. That's why people come and watch my content and they get involved. And I do. I love interacting with the community. I love the fact that you guys like to interact with me. That makes me happy. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I'm not here to turn anything or stir up anything or anything, but I do. I get some annoying comments, and I mean, I do. I clearly bring a lot of that on myself with the content that I make, or with the headlines that I make. And I mean, like, clearly you read the one today, I hate PlayStation. I know it sounds clickbaity, and I do that because I want people to come and watch my content. But when you get here and you become part of the community, you start to understand that, hey man, this guy is a real gamer, and he does just like I do. I share the exact same anxiety, the same unrealistic expectations, the same hope, the same dreams, the same hype levels. I share all of that with you. And when I get sucked up into the PR talk like everybody does, oh yeah, man, this game's going to do 4K 120 and all this stuff. I get sucked up into that too. But it's just lately, since I've gotten older, I've been more out to call stuff out when I see it. Now, Xbox hasn't really done anything to like really make me mad yet. The only thing that's starting to weigh in on me is like, hey man, like, you're spending all this money. I want to start seeing some games. I want to start seeing some exclusive stuff that's coming to Xbox, out of all of this stuff. We just got told the other day that all the Activision stuff will still be going multi-platform. I'm not losing any sleep over that. I don't really care, but there's a lot of people in the community that really does bug them. And as far as I'm concerned, it's like, come on guys, Xbox does need to recoup some of that money. You can't buy the biggest game and then turn it into a fraction of its former self. That doesn't make any sense. You can't just cut out a whole player base and expect them to just up and jump ship and run over and buy an Xbox just to play Call of Duty, which we know a lot of them would. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that would fall through the cracks with that. So, no, leave them multi-platform. I do not hate PlayStation. I do have unrealistic expectations sometimes when it comes to PlayStation because I do. I'm just like you. I get caught up in the PR talk. Mark Cerny himself came out and told us that, hey man, we need like 8 to 10 teraflops to do 4K. Okay? Well, we have that in our PlayStation 5. Why are we still getting checkerboard 4K? Like, why aren't we getting 4K? And why are we getting checkerboard 4K? Why are we dropping all the way down to 1080p at 60 frames a second on games, guys? Like, I don't understand that. My laptop can do 1440p over 60 frames a second. And my PlayStation 5 is more powerful than this. And some of the games that, like, I'm just trying to understand, like, what's going on with the PlayStation world. Why are we getting games like Dying Light 2 that are running at 1080p 60 frames a second. Is there something they're not telling us about the PlayStation 5? That's all I'm asking. I don't necessarily think that it's firing on all cylinders when it comes to, being able to do higher resolutions and stuff like that. I think there's something bottlenecking or something going on with that. And whatever. I mean, like, eventually we're going to find out. We're either going to just accept the main line of 1080p 60 frames a second and checkerboard 4K, or we're going to find out, exactly like, hey, what's really going on with this? I mean, we saw the Unreal Engine demo. Running at the exact same resolution on both Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, which was, just over 1600p, upscaled at 30 frames a second. So when it comes to, like, anything, it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. So when I come out and I talk about stuff on the PlayStation 5, it's just because I still feel like PlayStation lied to me again, like they did with the PlayStation 4 Pro. I don't feel like Xbox has lied to me. I don't feel like they have let me down or skimped out on power or anything like that. Like, I understand the limitations of what my Xbox Series X can do. I still just don't understand exactly what the limitations of my PlayStation 5 can do. Because I've been told my Xbox Series X is RDNA 2. I've been told my PlayStation 5 is based on RDNA 2. That doesn't mean it's completely 100% RDNA 2. And Sony themselves have said that they have used their own solutions to fill in some of those gaps. That's not a mystery. That's not a lie. That's a fact. That's something that they said. I just don't understand the full limitations or processes that could possibly make my PlayStation 5 a better or worse console. So until I actually see real next-gen content for my PlayStation 5 that isn't a cartoon Ratchet and Clank Pixar-looking game, I won't know. I won't understand the benefits or the drawbacks of what my PlayStation 5 can do. I feel like I have a pretty decent understanding of what my Xbox Series X is going to deliver this generation. I still am just on the fence about what my PlayStation 5 is going to do. And But long story short, I have a 1440p monitor. I would love for PlayStation to include 1440p support so I could play at native 1440p on my monitor. Right now I've got it piped into it 4K, and then it appears like it's downsampling, but some games do look a little bit don't necessarily look as good as I think they should, but that's just that. I mean, I'm still going to be playing my PlayStation 5 on the 4K TV as well. I've made the realization that I might, with the PlayStation 5, just might be happier just playing at 4K 30. As much as I don't want to, as much as I would rather start playing at 60 frames a second more regularly across most of the games that I play, that's something that I might just have to accept with the PlayStation 5. And yeah, I'm probably going to talk about it because it's going to get a little annoying when I'm playing stuff, at 60 frames a second on Xbox, and I'm playing stuff at 30 frames a second on PlayStation because I want to see the beautiful visuals. And that, I guess that's the trade-off these days. Nothing's ever perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. You always have to choose. It can never just be like a no-compromise console. They can't do that. Apparently, they just can't do it. And it's like the more power they stuff into these things, the more the developers are like, whoa, let me do this and this and this. And then by the time their games or whatever their vision is gets out there, concessions have to be made. You either get really beautiful visuals or you get solid performance. That's just the way it's always been. It's always been that way. And then toward the end of the generation, it starts to come full circle and you start getting a little bit more of both combined. So yeah, we're at a rocky start. We're in the growing phases of this generation. I do not freaking hate PlayStation 5. And I don't love Xbox so much that it's like, oh my gosh, the PlayStation doesn't matter. It's not like that, guys. It's really not. Like, I love Xbox. This is an Xbox-centric channel. But I love PlayStation. I'll never turn my back on PlayStation. It'll always be a part of me. It'll always be a part of this show. It'll always sit there next to my Xbox. For better or worse, this is a gaming channel, and I cover everything. Sometimes I even cover good old Nintendo. It just depends. Nintendo is, yeah. But on the Nintendo news, at least Metroid Dread's got a journalist mode now, so everybody can play. But maybe even I can play. Because I'll tell you what, I'm not going to lie, dude. I'm struggling with Metroid Dread. It is a tough game. And well, I don't know. I haven't played it in a little while, to be completely honest with you. But it is kind of tough at first when you're starting to figure it out. And if you haven't played Metroid in a while, and it's one of those games that if you haven't played for a while, you kind of just lose your edge. Muscle memory matters. It really does. And in today's games, some of them are pretty easy, and some of them just they you can just burn through a lot of games. And I feel like that's where a lot of players' frustration's coming from, is because these games, we spend this money on them and we want them to entertain us for a while. And if they're just, a good 30 hours or whatever, I mean, yeah, most of us have learned to accept that, yeah, I got 30 hours, whatever, it's great. But a lot of us have learned to accept that. And that's just where we're at with how gaming has evolved over time to try to bring in as many casual players as they can. We're at a point now where hard games are seen as like, ooh, gosh, I don't know, I'm gonna move away from that. I'm pretty excited to get into Sifu and really learn this combat and really learn how this game works. I want to be able to focus the time into that game to really get good at it and stuff. And I'm excited about that. And I think you should be excited about that too. Yeah, it does seem like it's going to get pretty hard, but I think I'm ready for the challenge, and I want to keep going back to it as often as possible. So we're going to be live streaming some of that this weekend. We're going to finish up the campaign of Crossfire X, the Spectre campaign, and we're going to also be moving on to some other stuff over this weekend, and then do some live streaming, stuff like that. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I posted another video that you can watch from here.